Oops.
Okay, this share, I think, needs to be opened up a bit. Okay, here we are. Right. Well, welcome everybody. And today's subject again is on the same theme, post-pandemic world. And in that sense, we are going to be again focusing on Elon Musk's vision, which we have pursued for the last 3-4 lectures. And of course, you will recall, and those who didn't attend the earlier ones, must say we did a general overview of the world, as it were, some thoughts on it. I've got those links. And if anybody wants to have those, one can actually go to the U3A newsletter and pick them up, or if you ask me, I can send them. Of course, after those thoughts, then we went into the other one, which was the Starlink. You remember the internet global sort of system. And that was followed by, I think, Tesla. And after Tesla, it was the space, reusable rockets. And now we're going to be doing Solar City. Now, the grand vision of Elon Musk, as I've said before, is about having three fundamentals, which I think are important from his vision, and I think for the world in general as well. One is about making this species into an interplanetary species. And towards that end, he's developing these reusable rockets in conjunction with NASA, and we talked about that. Then the second one was about the Tesla, maybe it was the third one, where the energy question is then looked at from the perspective of just the transport industry, and in particular the automobile industry, which means electric cars. And of course, we know that electric cars are so sort of important for sustainable energy in the future, that becomes a part of the grand vision. Another slot of that grand vision is, of course, was the global internet, the Starlink project. And that becomes feasible, I said, at that time, because of the reusable rockets. It makes it so much easier to put up satellites, especially when you know that for a global internet, you need something like 12,000 satellites orbiting the Earth. It wouldn't have been possible to do so many if it was a very expensive rocket launches. But in the case of reusable rockets, it becomes much more affordable. Then, apart from the global internet and the sustainable energy and the space sort of outlook, these three, I think, are the basis, the basic components from which all the other projects are derived. And the sustainable energy grand vision, again, is leading us to this idea of a solar city. Now, solar city is what we're going to be talking about today. And I don't know if any of you know anything about it, but it is, again, very much dependent on battery power being conserved during the daylight hours when you capture energy through the solar panels. So you can see it becomes self-sustaining as a home if you have fairly good sunlight, and then you save that sunlight into batteries and use it during the night and so on. So we're going to be talking a bit more about that. Now let me move on to today's agenda to give you an overview as to what I will be talking about. Here we are. So this is the grand vision I'm talking about. This is that global internet. And this is the reusable rockets that we talked about. And this is the electric cars, the Tesla. And then, of course, all these solar city projects, which are, again, to do with energy. And we'll talk a little bit about this history of how this solar city was conceived as well, and the involvement of Elon Musk in that project. We'll talk about why it is a sustainable sort of solution to energy problems as far as the homes go, because we are not going to be dependent on utilities at all in the future. Every home should be having such a setup which will capture the energy requirements of the sun through solar panels or solar tiles and use it during the day. And then, of course, any excess would be saved in the storage, the battery or power wall, as he calls it, which then sort of supplies it at night, all the energy requirements. Of course, before we come to that stage of being fully independent, there is a need as well to be tied into the utilities so that when you have low power, if you like, generation at home, this grid supplies you with the remainder that you need. And if you have excess at home being generated, then you supply it back to the grid. And the grid gives you different sort of rates at different times of the day. So there are sort of a lot of savings to be had. So you can see how this whole complex little setup at home can be made into self-sustaining and fairly affordable type of energy utilization. We'll also talk about how it works in a bit more detail. What are the component parts of this setup? And then, of course, the savings that it can accrue to individuals or homeowners who are, in fact, paying the bills out today. I'll just show you a few sort of clips, so not clips, but pictures of what China is doing by way of these huge solar sort of farms, as it were, which generates megawatts of energy to support all their local needs there. It's not, of course, encompassing all of China, but they're going into it in a big way. And then I'll talk a little bit about Elon Musk as a CEO of Solar City. One of the things about Solar City is that it has receded a bit to the background because Tesla has been in the foreground so much that it's being in the news, and of course it takes all the time of Elon Musk as well, apart from the space program that he's also very much engaged in, and the Starlink project. But he also is the one who, in fact, wanted to make this as part of his grand vision. So at the moment, it's got a bit of bad publicity because I think it was set up and there was some little management problems in the early days, which still haven't been resolved simply because he's not devoting enough time to it. But the basic idea is very sound, and I think it's going to go a long way towards satisfying the needs of a future city. Okay, let's get cracking and see. I'll show you a few of these pictures here, Solar City. You can see the idea is to not have roofs which are sitting there not doing anything, okay, they provide shelter, but also do something else beyond that. So I'll show you some pictures of how we are going to accomplish that. This is the Solar City, which I think they're investing and trying out all their various sort of ideas. Here is a neat home, which has so many panels on these things on top. And of course, the garage and some components over here, which control the input and the output of energy. Okay, let's look at a little bit basic. The primary motivation for setting this thing up, as we say, is again Tesla. Tesla, as you know, as we talked about in our earlier lectures, is focused on producing lots of cars which are electric. But the heart of the electric car, you know, is the battery. And to have a battery which is going to deliver the performance of a car, you need to be able to sort of do a fair amount of research and have the performance that you get out of the battery uh, acceptable, cost-wise and performance-wise. And in order to do that, he's going in a big way to try and develop the battery technology in Tesla. Now, Tesla bought this solar city, actually. He owns 22% of the shares in there, and there are others, and he's the CEO of that as well. But because of some management problems, there is that little difficulty at the moment. We'll talk about that later. So Tesla's mission, again, to repeat, as we have been repeating many times before, is inception to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Now, the world is full of fossil fuels at the moment. And as we have seen, fossil fuels are a big danger for the world, for the climate, because we are getting warmer. And if it reaches up to about 2 degrees average in the future, a lot of sustainability of the planet is going to be under threat. So we need to do something. And hopefully when we come out of this pandemic world, there will be an acceleration towards, against fossil fuels and towards alternate forms of energy. And of course, electricity will be one. And it's the cleanest. Now, he, as I said, 22% of the solar stock. So he's the CEO, and he can, if he devotes more time to it, I think this thing will get going a lot faster. The technique, you see, the solar city doesn't produce solar cells. What they do is they install the roofs, and they are into developing the type of solar panels in one of their gigafactories of Tesla, which is in Buffalo, I think, these solar panels and also the solar tiles. We'll talk about a bit more. And the financial plan is basically to make the owner of a house just sign up for $50 a month, and the thing would be installed, and they would sort of have plenty of energy. But that is a model that needs to be looked at, and that's why there is a bit of a walk back on that. So again, this is reiterating that Tesla bought the solar thing. So they market, manufacture, and install residential and commercial solar panels and solar roofs in the US. They're based in California. So that's basically saying Tesla acquired that. And Tesla is the main sort of motive power behind Solar City to produce the batteries and the solar tiles and the solar panels. This is just to say that Panasonic at the moment is working with Tesla to produce all these massive requirements of batteries. And a lot of them are being produced in Buffalo, but they are going to be opening up, as we saw in our earlier lectures. There might be one coming up in Nevada, and another one in Texas, maybe. So here we are, version 3 of this solar roof. It says they're going to produce a fair amount of them. I'm not sure how many, 1,000 new roofs, they say, per week. But still, they haven't really gone, if you like, under full power. But they're ramping up. In February 2020 this year, they said they're going to ramp up those installations a bit more, until reported that it had achieved its goal by producing 4 megawatt of solar roofs in a week, which is enough for 1,000 homes. Still, these are small numbers, not the grand vision that is going to sort of make a lot of difference. So let's see now. Here we go. Okay, now one of the things that the government is also doing, and I think this is not just the US government, but we know that Europe also is encouraging electricity in a big way, especially when the new president of the commission, von Leyen, I think, Ursula von Leyen, she came in and made one of the first important statements she made when she took over, was to say that we are going to go for the green energy. And green energy essentially means a lot of electricity in the transport region and in wherever possible. So the government tries to encourage this by giving, if you like, subsidies. And companies come in to pick up these subsidies in order to get their businesses going. And that's where at the moment they're still working at collecting some of these subsidies. And amongst these, the help that you get from the government, you've got people like Google who are also investing in this because they realize that this is the way to go in the future. So that's why in our pandemic world, post-pandemic world, we are going to have to think seriously about making some effort towards going towards away from the fossil fuels. Of course, you know, I mean, the oil market has really dropped down to something negligible now. And I think the fear is that they're going to be made bankrupt before long because the world is going to move away. So I think they're trying to preempt that demise, if you like, of the oil industry and the industrial combustion engine type of automobiles. I think all those are on their way out. So there's a big threat there, and they're going desperately to try and sort of ward that off one way or another. So we'll see what other games they will be playing. And of course, with our current sort of situation, when we come out of lockdown, I think the big pressure will be on the government to try and get people back into the jobs so the economy gets going. They're not going to be thinking about the climate, they're not going to be thinking about electricity, nothing. They're going to be thinking just about jobs. So again, a good opportunity will be lost. And I'm not sure how anybody is going to be voicing their concerns at a time like this. But technology is moving ahead. They've made the affordability of electricity cars within range, and the cost of alternate energy is below the fossil fuel energy cost now. So these two things are very fundamental to driving the world towards that. But of course, they have to ward off the big oil lobbies and the automobile lobbies, and we'll have to follow the news to see how they're going to be doing that. Yeah, this is the production of these solar panels and solar tiles are taking place in Buffalo and New York. And they again took some subsidy from the New York government so that they can bring in new industry in that region. Along with the new industry comes new jobs as well. So they have picked up some incentives from the government there as well. This is just saying Google is also interested in this. They've invested $300 billion, quite a big amount of money. Okay, how does the solar thing work at home? So let's have a look at that briefly. Okay, very briefly, what it's all about is that you've got a home and you've got the solar panels here. They capture the sun and create energy, which is the photovoltaic sort of currents and voltage here that comes down into the inverter and goes into the power into the house as AC. We talked about the inverter. You remember in the Tesla lecture that we talked about? In the car, there are two things. One is the actual motor, electric motor, and the other one of equal size is the inverter. So the idea is that the DC current comes into the inverter and gets converted into AC current, and the AC current drives the wheels, you know, the stator. And in this case, it drives our fans and the fridges and all that type of thing. But there are, you know, opportunities to do the DC current directly as well. We'll talk about that, the advantages of that. So it's quite simply, this is what it is. Capture the sunlight, turn it into electricity, and then convert it into AC and use it at home. Yeah, that's just basically repeating the same thing and discover it in the power. So that it captures the sunlight. You can see it's all this yellow, and it comes in here. and then it comes in here. So what happens is during the sun, maybe sunny days and so on, or even if you're not using your home fully, you can get this power to go to the grid. See, so if you don't utilize the sun, after putting it into the batteries, you can then put the excess in back into the grid, and the grid sort of pays you for it or gives you electricity back at at a better price, and those sort of things are there. Okay, during the evening hours, you draw the electricity from your utility company. So in the evening, when the sun goes off, the utility gives us the power back into the home. See, and they give it back at the better rates than otherwise. So here we are. This is essentially saying that you've got at the moment homes which are capturing this DC power from the panels, and they can be either on grid or off grid. Basically saying you can either be tied to the utility or not at all. And there's a lot of savings to be had. That's what this picture is showing. Okay, a bit of picture here to tell you that, if you take a DC fan, DC current fans are available, and AC current fans are also available. In the same sort of wingspan here. But interesting to see what the power consumption of each is for delivering the same amount of utility. So here the voltage is 12 and the current is 2 amps, and the total power is 25 watts. So you just multiply one with the other. With an AC fan, you'll have the same thing, 220 volts, which is what we get at home. And then, but the current is very low. But then if you multiply that with that, you get 80 watts. So you can see there's a big difference in terms of energy utilization, depending on how you use that same energy, either in the form of DC or as AC. Okay, that's an important sort of realization. So you can cut down on the bills quite a bit. Now this is again a little bit more detailed picture about this. This is the utility here, which you're linked up to for giving access or bringing in when you have a low sort of generation at home. DC power being created, DC load here, and the excess gets stored in the battery. And we have in the home lots of AC load as well. So this consumes more than the DC, depending on the type of equipment you have. Some can run on DC, some can run only on AC. Yeah, again, this is essentially saying there's a saving of 70% power savings. I mean, that's quite substantial. Then more sort of backup of the batteries. So less electricity bill. So you can see the two can give you. Now, electricity bills will keep on mounting here, as you can see, as utilities, in time, they keep on, beefing up their bills, and you keep paying more and more. It's again the same thing, DC power consumption. You can drive all your equipment at home for far less, essentially repeating the same message. Now, the beautiful home there you can see, it's all self-sufficient. I presume this is in a sunny place. It's got the electric car, which gets plugged into this power wall here, which retains the energy from the roof, which collects this, from panels here, or from the tiles, the electric DC current, and stores it in this power battery. So that's a very neat little house, very self-sufficient. And something that we all should aspire to, rather than having these very complex, radiators with gas and water flowing and boilers, quite a big change, a very clean type of setup with electricity. Now here is a case of guy who did the actual figure work on how he comes out once he has installed the roof, and what his experience is in terms of utilizing. Okay, we are running out of time, so I'll sort of send you the link again when we stop. Okay. Okay. Until then, I think we've got some more time to go. We've got 9 more minutes, so I'll keep talking. So here is the thing that his total installation is what they call a 3.575 kilowatts of energy that is going to be uh, produced for his home. And it's a 20-year type of guarantee he has that he is working on. So his contract price is 15,000. Amount due is so much, and the amount of energy he produces is 5.5 kilowatt, more than this one you can see. So his roof is producing a lot more because he has probably got good weather. And then with all the other sort of adjustments and so on, his cost is now coming down to 10, because it's federal credit you get as well. Now, this is the power generation in terms of the year. In the summer terms, high, and the other terms, low. So he's producing about 6 kilowatts of energy compared to the stated 3 to 4 that he was anticipating. So here it is. In the winter, he's going to be paying this much, and summer so much. Tier 1, that's baseline. Tier 2. This is utility charges versus home power. So price per kilowatt. This is in January figures. So they put it up later on for these sort of prices. They'll become clearer in the next one, I think. Yeah. So what he is talking about is that from January to December, this was his total sort of cost without solar. See, that's just paying for the utility bills. This is what he was paying. You see, each year he was paying in January $50, and then starts to mount up in summer $350 because of all the air conditioning and all that. So his bills are these, and total cost is about $2,290. This is a real live example of his bills. Now, what we're saying is that total cost without solar was this. Paid non-passable charges, so paid excess kilowatt hour. So this is what he's paying with his added solar panels and so on. So he's getting the benefit of this much. So this is annual cost, and this is what he's paying up in terms of in lieu of that. So quite a substantive type of saving. And this again is showing us, oops. Yeah, okay, we can look at this as well. Solar plus, these are costings of his own as to how much he paid to get that thing installed. Average monthly bills were these after the solar panel and power was installed. So total was this tax credit. So total came to that. So his average monthly savings was $170 really. And it means that he can recover his costs in 11 years. So quite a big saving there. Now this is just showing us a bit about how you see, with the installation of this green band here, which is with the solar power and power wall battery, this is the amount of, this is the pay he's making, about $31 per month. In July, compared to that, he's paying something like 300 something or 200 something. So you see, this was the cost for 2017-18, and this was the cost for 2016 and 17. So humongous difference there. In fact, with the solar panel and Powerwall, you can see the green bars are so much smaller. In fact, in one case, he's sort of feeding back to the grid. So he gets a bit of money. back from the grid if he doesn't sort of claim it in discounts. So quite a substantive difference utilizing solar panels or solar tiles. Now this is what we're trying to head off. At the moment we've got a very post-industrial type of scene here with lots of carbon being emitted and pollution and drought, whatever. So there's a huge, if you like, cost to the environment. And we're trying to offset that. That's why this vision he's presenting is cost effective, clean, and very doable. It just needs the government to wake up and provide the right type of subsidies where necessary, encourage it, and not be crushed by the oil lobby and the automobile lobby, which at the moment is going to be at maximum because the car industry is global and they've got supply chains they want to keep active. They don't want everybody to lose their jobs. So jobs become central to this government's outlook and nothing else. What they should do is say, okay, jobs are going to be important, but at the same time, one can shift gear and make for a better world and a better sort of push to try and encourage better forms of energy. Now, again, this is the emissions. That emission tells you, see, the CO2 levels are huge. See, these are the normal ones, and now they're shooting up. This is Elon Musk giving a talk about why it is so important for us to be heading towards solar type of solutions, solar panels, solar tiles, electric cars, global internet, all that sort of thing, which I think makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, we've still got another 3 minutes. Okay, again, this is repeating that the sustainable energy is the driving force for the solar energy, solar city project. Yeah, basically it's saying that it's made up of 3 areas. One is the generation part, which the solar panels do the generation. Storage, which is the battery, the power wall. And then the cars that are in the garage, which you're going to use for your driving back and forth. So these are 3 components, which I think are very much consumers of energy. Now this is showing just a little peak of the solar. The maximum thing is between 6 a.m. or not 6 a.m. Yeah, about 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think. Yeah, that's when you create the maximum solar energy, and after that it goes down. Yeah, these are how prices have moved. In fact, very high prices here in this top end of these. One is for 2017, 2010, and this is 2001. So the peaks are here when they're using it, and when they use maximum, the cost is also highest, if you like. That's why the utility bills become high during summer. Yeah, that's again saying about the pricing. So let's go to others. That's again detail. Okay, one of the components of the home will be a power wall, which is costing about $5,500. But all the energy gets stored in here. In this will be used to supply you with the nighttime energy, and for the cars, you can plug it in, and your electric car will be charged up. Now, this Power Pack 2 is a component for the utilities, because the question of sustainable energy is not just to have utilities producing energy using fossil fuels, but they themselves can have these large solar panel farms, as it were, acres and acres of that produce megawatts of electricity. And that electricity can be stored in things like this. See, this can store up to 210 kilowatts, 50 kilowatts. In fact, they can store up more. Here are the other figures. This company is storing up 80 megawatts. This Hawaii island is saying about 52 megawatts. So these are big. I think Australia has also put many of these in one of these cities there. Totally.
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
This is just showing the panels coming in for installation on the roof. I'm just showing you a little walkthrough of how they go about doing this. There we are. In fact, if you look at Solar City, it was set up with about $10 million from Elon Musk, I think. And what happened was that they just hired some construction workers to just lay these solar panels. But I think the construction workers weren't fully trained to do the job. As a result, some of the customers, and one of them was Walmart, they sued Solar City and they got a settlement. So they have to now be careful about getting the right type of skills in-house, which I think will probably come about sooner than later, hopefully, as far as Solar City is concerned. Now, this is a talk by Elon Musk when he was trying to promote the Solar City concept to people, as you can see in front. They were all in a community where that whole community had solar cells or panels on their roofs. And this is a picture of a before picture of the roof. And we'll see a after picture of the roof after that. So in fact, it looks a bit better. But what it does indicate is that they're a lot better than some of those thin canvas material type of things that you use for roofs. So this is a bit more solid and has a choice in terms of the type of thing that you can go for. This is, I think, put that inside there. Okay, this is a closer look of the roof. Now, as I said to you before, there are two types of things that they are working on. One is the solar panels, which are standard photovoltaic cells in large panels that you saw, one of those truckers carrying about. Or you can go for the small tiles, which are miniaturized solar panels, if you like. And they have the durability in terms of the strength. You can't walk on a solar panel, but you can walk on this, or just about. And it is strongly built. But still, it has not come up to the mark to be able to sort of be accepted as a genuine utilitarian type of component for the roof. It's getting there. Not quite.
Shafiq, can we turn everybody go on to mute, because I'm getting feedback.
What do you want?
If they just go on to mute, they're because
Oh,
you're
mute,
talking.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise, I get feedback. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think I've muted everybody, I think.
Everyone can do it themselves.
Well, I've muted, I think, all. Two or three. Maureen, Mimi, you're not muted at the moment.
Why not? I'll do.
You can mute you, because I tried to mute here. And Giselle.
I can't see where the mute thing, but there's no noise here unless you can hear my cat purring.
Yeah, you need to unmute now. Mute.
Where is I can't see the mute button. It's very quiet here. No noise.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, there's another picture of a house that I think we saw one. This is what it looks beforehand. And then with the new tiles and becoming all electric, a much more cleaner look, with 2 electric cars in the garage. Of course, this is like a showroom, I suppose. And that's a picture of all these after pictures of all these houses. They look quite neat. I don't think there's, you can see the different types of roofs there, you can see. So that allows for it. Even these are solar tiles, see? So you have plenty of choice. Yeah, this is showing you the terracotta type of tile with the inbuilt solar tile in it. This is showing you the strength of the tile. And what they're doing is you've got this terracotta one, and this one is a clay tile, and this one is a slate tile, and this is the Tesla glass tile. So they dropped the weight. This is the weight from this height, and you can see it smashed these 3, but it didn't smash this, so it's quite hard. Okay, these are solar tiles in comparison with the terracotta and all these other ones. So it's comparable, not too far out. Now this is a China farm. You can see China does it in a big scale, anything that it does. You know, acres and acres of these things. And it supplies 15,000 homes, I think. Now these panels are laid on a lake. See this water here. Okay. Now there's a good thing to do that because water is a free surface, but it has an additional value in that you can see in the next slide. It absorbs the heat that gets generated in the solar panels. So the water absorbs it. So it keeps the solar panels cool. So you don't have to have that layer underneath the solar panel that sort of gives it air circulation to keep it cool. Okay, these are some of the financials, as it were, that he's involved with. He owns about 22% of Tesla shares. I don't know if you've been following what he tweeted just 2 days ago. On Friday, I think he tweeted. And he's become a little bit carefree in the sense of what he says. And he says the Tesla stock price was going up and up and up. It had gone up to $850 a share. And he said, oh, I think it's a bit too high. And then the whole market dropped to 700. It knocked off $3 billion of his holding value. And of course, lost 14 or 15 billion of the company's value. So you can see a simple tweet can have devastating effect. So he's got to be a bit careful of what he says. He's also the 22% holder of Solar City. Now, Solar City's shares are right down to $5 at the moment. So if any of you are a gambler, this is the time to pick them up. But there's a saying that, you know, they've got so many problems on the early management issues. I don't know when they're going to resolve that. Now, even SpaceX has purchased Solar City bonds. So he's not taking it lightly. He's investing his money, his reputation, everything in the Solar City. So I expect to see Solar City doing really well in the future. Now this shows the complexity of the holdings of SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City, and the people involved. There's some of his cousins there and so on, so there's no point in going into that too much. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say, so it gives us a chance to maybe have some question and answer for the moment. So if you have any questions.
How would it work, Shefik, in the Scandinavian countries where you don't get as much sun?
Yeah, well, there is a balance to be drawn as to how much you're going to be able to generate versus how much you're going to be able to buy from the utility. Homes, I think, in the upper latitudes are going to have less sun naturally, unless they happen to be in that part of the year where the days are long. So in cases of areas which don't have enough sun, then of course there is going to be a different costing that is going to be necessary. Of course, homes that have a lot of big space of roof and a lot of sunlight hours and so on, then they're going to benefit a lot. And they'll feed that back into the grid, and the grid could be feeding it to areas which have low sunlight. The grid sort of can transfer. You see those big columns in the fields. They transmit their voltages at very, very high, 650,000 volts, very high voltages, and they can transfer with very little power losses. And they can transfer this energy from hundreds of miles to other places. So you might have to sort of depend on the utility companies to do that.
Yeah. Can I just ask you, is there any way, can we store this, or has it got to just either go to the grid or go into the house?
Oh, yes, you see the battery power, the power wall, we talked about it in the first part.
Oh, right, I missed it, sorry.
The power wall is the battery pack that is, the size of about the height of a man, if you like, and as broad as about thick as this, and about this wide.
Yeah.
It's about 5 feet wide and about 6 inches or a foot thick. The power from the solar panels will go into that, the excess power straight away. In fact, all power will go into that. And from it, it'll go to the inverter for the AC power. Or if you've got DC requirement, you'll go to DC, and part of it will go back to the grid from there if there is a surplus there. And it will charge up the Tesla car as well, or electric car.
So if you've got
you have a self-contained mechanism to store in-house as well.
Right.
That's the whole point. To capture the energy, solar energy, store it in the power wall, and then send it to the grid, or get it back from the grid when you need it, and then charge your Tesla from the power wall as well.
So if you live in Norway or Sweden, where could you store the summer sun heat light thing and then use it during the winter, or would it not be that, the battery wouldn't be that big?
Yeah, well, if you look at the Australian sort of project that Elon Musk was building, they've got huge, the size of caravan, the containers. The size of those containers, about 50 or 100 of them, I don't know how many there are. They're all batteries, and they would supply a whole city with their power requirements.
Wow.
See? Okay. So, because Australia has plenty of sun, they can capture it and store it.
Yeah.
1 day of sunlight in the world is enough to supply the whole world for a year. If you can capture that energy.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And this is
Can
the way
I just
to
ask Shafiq, how much is this being used currently in the UK? And is it possible, or are the government planning in giving perks to organizations or even individuals who use this?
Well, the government used to give subsidies for the solar panel. They've removed the subsidy. It all depends on which government. I think the Labour government had the subsidy in there. The Tories came in and took that thing away, I think. So it's a question of seeing which government is more amenable to green energy. Because, the lobbies are so powerful that they influence the Tory government quite a bit. So that's why they don't move too much on that front.
How does it work with an apartment building, for example? Do they just divide the amount of apartments up and whatever usage, whatever it provides?
You see, you can measure what you use, like your water meters at the moment. Depending on how much you use, you charge for that much.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you know, say you've got, I don't know, 50 apartments in a block, and you've just got one roof that's generating energy.
Yeah.
So they all have to have a share of it, regardless of how much they use. It's when it runs out, that's when they go onto the grid. I mean,
I think that's what they will probably be doing. I think this is what I think, because I live in an apartment, and there was a project to try and put some solar panels on the flat roof of our buildings. And they said, okay, the first thing would be to try and light up or use it for the common areas. Secondly, they would then feed it back to the grid and get some money and reduce our bills somewhat.
right, okay.
Yeah. So, but we are well on the way. You see, the big sort of thing was that some years ago, just 2-3 years ago, I think, Abu Dhabi, who is a big oil producer, they are going in for these big solar panel farms. And they made the announcement that their cost of electricity that they produce is less than the cost of fuel.
Wow.
So when these big producers are already threatened with alternate forms of energy being equal to the cost of oil, that's why I think one of the things that has promoted this collapse in the oil prices is, one is that issue, the other one is of course the pandemic, where everybody stops using the cars and nobody's going out and so on. So that collapsed, and of course the politics gets a bit crazy, and they start to vie with each other, and that's what happened in the oil market when the oil went to prices $0 per barrel. Never heard of anything like that. In fact, it went negative.
Finally, negative.
Take the oil away from us and we'll pay you.
But they did.
Gone up again now, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, about $20 now, I think, isn't it?
Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go up too much.
Amazing.
Yeah, right. So you're all for this solar city?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
So,
absolutely.
100%.
yeah, sounds like a very good idea to me.
Fabulous idea.
So obvious, isn't it? It's too blooming obvious.
Yeah, so obvious.
Wonderful.
Really, but you see, the status quo people don't want to bring that about, because
No.
otherwise it means they lose their business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the government says, okay, you lose the business, people get unemployed, we'll have to pay the people. So they said, no, hang on, and carry on, I will give you a little subsidy to carry on. So they're promoting, in fact, the bad policies of these big lobbies. So bad news in that way.
Things have to change.
Yeah, it would have to be different. I remember reading years ago about Microsoft Windows. You know how we all use Windows, well, apart from the Apple people. And apparently Windows is now really old, and other people have come forward over the years with some brilliant ideas to use instead of Windows, or upgrade or make it better. And Microsoft buys them out and buries it. So we're all stuck. It's this oil thing, protecting their empire, regardless of whether it's good or bad. It's just for them.
Well, we've seen this historically. Is when the railways were being built in the USA, and when the car lobby started and the oil lobby, when they discovered oil, they stopped the development of railways, and they started to build roads and cars. So
and then when they build houses and towns, they are all car dependent.
Yes, they are.
Everything's spread out so far. You have to have a car. That's deliberate. I mean,
that's right. I think, and the biggest sort of folly, I thought, was by Bush. You remember I've mentioned this before, that when the nuclear reactors were being developed, there was a nuclear reactor which was using something called thorium instead of uranium.
Yeah.
And they were equally efficient, except that the thorium one didn't leave any bad sort of byproducts, which went nuclear. But Bush went for Nixon, I think. No, Nixon. Yeah, Nixon it was. He went for the bad uranium decision because uranium produced plutonium, and plutonium was what they needed for the bomb.
Oh, for God's sake.
And of course, all the things that we have about the nuclear reactors,
Radioactive.
the dirty sort of radioactive produced byproduct, is because of that. And thorium would have been a clean energy solution. A container worth of thorium reactor would have given the power for the whole village. And you can switch it on and switch it off without any problems of radioactivity. But so they're working on it now. I think they will sooner or later, I think, will bring it about, so long as these lobbies don't cut them off.
Outrageous, isn't it? It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sadiq. That was fascinating.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thanks a lot.
interesting.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have
Really
a good week.
appreciate it. It was lovely. Thank
Bye-bye.
you again.
Thank you.
See you
Bye,
later.
next week.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.